Hello, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how we're going to be using metallic watercolor. So I'm going to be making a Space Galaxy watercolor painting using black paper and some metallic watercolor. So I'm going to show you everything that I'm going to use, and then I'm going to show you how to create this beautiful metallic watercolor. So I like to explore with different watercolor materials, and I just want to share my fun of all this exploring of the metallic watercolors. So I hope you enjoy this video, and I'm just going to show you everything that I'm going to do. So here there are different brands of metallic and pearlescent watercolor. There is Van Gogh, Artist Loft, which is like a tube form, Prima, and Finetec, and they're all pretty good brands. So whichever one you choose is fine. There are also many other different brands, but these are just a few that I'm going to mention. So for the drawing materials, all we're going to need is a circle template, a small ruler, a half circle ruler, protractor, metallic pencils, and a white gel pen. Usually like a white jelly roll pen is fine. We're also going to need some round craft brushes. You can get some really inexpensive ones from Michaels or Target, and they work well with the metallic watercolor because the watercolor is a little bit hard, so you're going to be kind of like being a little rough with the brushes, so it works to have some inexpensive brushes. You're also going to need a small jar of water, a spray bottle to moisten the watercolor, some white gouache as we do some stars, and you're going to use that white gouache for that. A white washcloth to wipe your brushes off, a toothbrush, and an eraser. So here I have some black Artagain paper. It's from Strathmore, and I taped it to a canvas panel. So I have a larger canvas panel that I used some white electrical tape to tape it down. And here are some of the supplies I'm going to use. Like I said, I'm going to use the circle grids, rulers, and things like that to start off with my first initial sketch. So I have a protractor, and I'm just going to create some circles. You can do this freehand if you want to, but it's just a little bit neater if you have something to help you make a complete circle, and it looks just a little bit better than just doing it freehand, at least for me. So I'm using some metallic pencils, and these are the pencils that I'm using are Prismacolor pencils. So I'm just putting the circles, which these are going to be the planets, so I'm putting them all over the page. Wherever you want to put them is fine. So you just want to just place them. I'm using the other rulers, and I'm also going to vary the sizes and shapes. So I'm going to make some small, some large, and it doesn't matter. I'm just putting them wherever I feel like I want to place them. So I'm also going to use some regular craft brushes because the metallic watercolor is a little bit hard and it's hard to pull up the paint. So I'm using some inexpensive craft brushes to use to paint with. The bristles are a little bit firmer, and so it's easier to paint and pick up the watercolor. So I'm not using any watercolor brushes. These are just craft brushes because I'm gonna do some scrubbing of the watercolor, so I won't worry about messing up my brushes. I'm also going to use a toothbrush, and the toothbrush is going to be for the white gouache that I'm going to use. It's going to spray around. I'm going to show how I spray the white gouache around to make the stars. So here are all the colors that I have. Like I said, I'm using Finetec watercolor, and I'm also using Prima watercolor, and I'm using a Winsor white gouache. And I'm going to spray these down because it's going to help to like moisten the watercolor so it'll be easier to paint with. So I'm spraying it down first. I'm just using a regular spray bottle. This has happened to be a old hairspray bottle. So I'm just spraying it down, and I'll let that sit for a little bit, and then it just helps the paints to be a little bit easier to pick up when I'm painting. So this Finetec watercolor is very vibrant and opaque, so I like using the Finetec. The Prima watercolor is a little bit less opaque, but it's still a good watercolor. The Finetec watercolor is a little more expensive than the Prima watercolor, but both are pretty good. If you want to start off, you can try using the Prima watercolor if you want to get started, because the Prima watercolor set was probably about $15. So but you can experiment and see which ones you like the most. The Finetec watercolors came from Blick Art Materials, and the Prima watercolors come from Prima Marketing. So for the colors of the planets, I'm just going to make different colors. I'm not gonna I'm gonna use like blues and pinks, and it's just gonna make it a little more fun. I'm not going to paint these according to how they actually look, but I'm going to paint them the way that I want to paint them. That's the good thing about art, is you don't have to paint it exactly how you see it. You can paint it the way you want to paint it. So I'm taking these planets, and they may be not the original color, but I decided to change the colors and do them the colors that I want to have them to be. And here I'm just going to mix different colors just to give the planets a different variation of color. So I'm adding color, 2 different types of pinks and 2 different, just to kind of give it some interest. So I'm also going to do that with the other planets. I'm going to add 2 different colors instead of just one flat color. And as you can see with the Prima watercolors, that one watercolor looks purple, but when you put it down, it's kind of like a blue color. So I'm going to take a little more of that purple watercolor from the Finetec and add it to that blue, which will give it a variation of color. So here I'm going to use my white jelly roll pen, and this is a size 10 Sakura jelly roll pen, and it's a white opaque pen, so it really works good trying to make stars and things like that. You can use that, or you can use, like I said, the white gouache. I'm going to use the Winsor Newton white gouache. I found that this gouache is very opaque, and it stands out a little bit more than just white watercolor. So if you're wanting to use something that's going to stand out, I would suggest using gouache, because gouache is a little more, the paint is a little more concentrated and it's not as thin as watercolor. So I'm going to use a toothbrush, and I'm going to put some of that white gouache on the toothbrush, and I'm going to flick it with my thumb so that it creates some stars that you can see. So I'm just going to dab a little bit of water into the white gouache, and I'm just going to take my thumb and just kind of like move it back and forth on the bristles of the toothbrush, and that's going to give me some stars. So this is something fun to do. If you haven't tried it, you can try this using colored gouache on white paper, and it makes it a fun project to do. So I'm just going around placing that white wash all around the painting. So it looks like I'm just about done with the painting, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. And once again, this is all about having fun with the watercolor. It's about having fun exploring how you can use metallic watercolor on black paper. So if you decide to try these, and if you want to just start off, I'd start off with the Prima watercolors because they're less expensive, and try to explore with those. And if you want to try the Finetec, those came from Blick Art Materials. So like I said, this is very simple, and all you need is some few circle templates. And if you don't have the circle templates, you can use the top of a jar container, or you can use anything you find around your house that has a circle. You can use a cup. Anything that has a perfect circle shape is fine. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that it was informative and that you just have fun exploring with this metallic watercolor.